Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Miskatonic AV Club, the Mythos Busters production. I'm Sean. With me is Mythos Busters intern Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Sean.
Back again. Thank you for coming back. Didn't run screaming. And today we're gonna have fun. That's all there is to it, because we're doing the Lost in Time and Space player card review, and there are some crazy cards in this pack.
All the juicy, expensive ones.
Oh, yeah. So, let's just hop straight into it. Vicious Blow is a level 2 Guardian skill. It has 2 combat icons. It is practiced and expert. If this skill test is successful during an attack, that attack plus 1 damage, plus 2 instead if it succeeds by 2 or more. So, yeah, just like all the other upgraded core set ones, I feel like if you've already got Vicious Blow in your deck, really no reason you don't upgrade it once you have the XP.
It is definitely a good upgrade, especially once we get 2 player cards further into the pack and you get Lightning Gun, which really helps you succeed by 2 or more.
It sure does. And then you just melt things. You disintegrate them from their own molecule.
Pretty much.
I don't know what else to say about this card. If you've got level 0 and you can get it to level 2, probably do that.
I feel like we should call out the sort of rogue seed by 2 archetype, because skids with this card is really nice.
Yep.
You sort of load up on those effects and get a lot of extra value out of it.
That seems solid. I've gained a new appreciation for skids after running him through Carcosa. Rogue's gotten a good go of things.
It certainly helps now that we're out of the sort of heavy willpower nasty days of early Arkham, where skids just sort of gets frozen by fear and stuck.
That still happens, but yeah, saying
it does still happen, but it doesn't happen as often.
Not with as much regularity. All right, so then moving on to the next Guardian card. You want to take that one?
Sure, I get the Great Monster Slayer. There's a 1-cost 5 XP Guardian event, Spirit traded. You discard it for a skill, you get +1 combat and a wild icon. And the text says, fight. If this attack succeeds against a non-elite enemy, defeat that enemy. I so wish this did not say non-elite.
Yeah, well, I feel like if it didn't, it would be busted as hell.
If it didn't, it would be busted as hell, but it's so bad right now.
You know, I took this as a one of in when we did Iron Man Dunwich. I think the only way you can justify it is someone who just straight up starts really high combat. The only person I could justify running this in right now is Mark, who was not out when this came
out. Yeah, it does technically save you a weapon shot in exchange for a card. So like you can blow away some enemies that might take 2 lightning gun hits, for example, or both barrels of your shotgun in exchange for just 1 monster slayer. But there aren't very many enemies that are that tough.
Yeah. I feel like the best play I had was playing this on a it was either a conglomeration of spheres. No, it was the Shoggoth in the last in Where Doom Awaits.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that if that is non-elite.
Like, that's the thing, is just like it has to be an enemy with enough hit points that it's going to take you, some gross amount of resources or actions to kill it, or you're going to have to take, attacks in between because one turn's not going to be enough or something like that.
But all the sort of really big scaling enemies are elite.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I feel like they could fix it by making it if this attack succeeds against a monster enemy, but that's probably still busted.
Yeah. There are just too many bosses that you can't cheese, otherwise it's going to completely just take the bite out of the scenario.
You don't want to give Guardian a 5 XP, shoot the Great Old One in the face card, and win the scenario.
No, you do not. No, you do not. So it's interesting. I don't think it goes everywhere. and I don't think it pulls its weight all the time, but it's cool.
It's one to remember. Like, you get to the end of the campaign where enemies start getting bigger. Maybe there'll be a good target for it.
I don't think I ever go more than one of in a deck, though.
Oh no, buying 2 is very expensive.
To say the least. Now, one card I would argue is completely worth every bit of what you pay for it is the Lightning Gun. It is a level 5 Guardian asset, 6 cost, intellect and combat icons, item, weapon, and firearm traded. Uses 3 ammo, and action, spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +5 for this attack, and this attack deals +2 damage. And it takes up 2 hand slots because it's a big old gun. So I think Lightning Gun kind of inadvertently makes other high-level Guardian guns just pale in comparison.
I mean, this is far and away if you ignore all the costs associated with it, it is by far the best combat you can get in the game. +5 to your skill and baseline 3 damage is way better than anything else.
Sure is. The only things I'd have to say for it is 3 ammo can run out pretty quickly, especially if you're kind of a dedicated monster killer. So packing things like extra ammunition, oddly enough, I feel like this is one of the few times it's warranted.
Extra ammunition is really good. Having a bandolier and a machete to sort of take on weaker enemies, also really good. Sleight of hand if you're Zoe.
Zoe.
Yeah, pretty much just if you're Zoe.
Yep,
but
she's the only one who
we'll
can run it so far.
Yeah.
Yep. Fantastic card. I feel like if you're not dedicated monster killer guardian, maybe solo, maybe you look past this. But
it is really expensive.
It is. Like, it's expensive and it takes up both hand slots, so you're committing a lot to getting this card down.
Although all the big guardian weapons do take up 2 hand slots. You can't get anything above, the 45 level 2 without spending both of your hands.
That's true. Yeah, both the shotgun and the
Springfield.
You take up 2 slots. Oh man, did this put the nail in the coffin of the Springfield, though?
I still think the Springfield is better than people give it credit for, but, if you were to choose Springfield or Lightning Gun, you pick Lightning Gun.
All right. So, moving on from there, we have, is it the only level 0 card in this whole pack?
This is the only level 0 card in the pack.
Oh.
Dr. William T. Mallison is a 1-cost Seeker ally from the Miskatonic University. Brings with him 1 willpower icon, 2 health, and 2 sanity, which is pretty nice. And this fantastic response: when you draw an encounter card from the encounter deck, exhaust Dr. Mallison and place 1 of your clues on your location, cancel the drawing of that card and shuffle it back into the encounter deck, then draw a new card from the top of the encounter deck. That is a lot of text for a pretty simple effect.
It sure is.
You draw an encounter card, you shuffle it back in, and you draw another one.
At the cost of a clue.
1 clue is not that bad for Seekers, though.
Nope, sure ain't. And I think he even extends over to Roland is a really good pair for him, because Roland cares about having clues on locations with his ability and his gun.
Oh, absolutely. And Seeker has the 3 wild icon skill that you can only use if there's a on your location. I mean, it still costs you a clue, but it is not as big of a cost in Seeker or Roland as it would be in another faction.
And similar to what we talked about with Fine Clothes on the last installment, a 1-drop ally with 2 health and 2 sanity. That, his text could be basically blank, and there are still investigators who would look at that and go, maybe.
He definitely has fantastic health. I love that he can actually take a hit from a sort of small enemy and stick around. So like you can actually use him as a soak without losing the ability.
Yep. Yeah, I'm a
Plus,
fan.
I have no idea what he's doing in that art, but it looks fun.
He's making the new formula for Mountain Dew. Look at it. Resplendent. Glowy. Yeah, I don't know. That it does look like he's working on something big though.
Something big for sure.
All right, so then let's move it on to Deciphered Reality. Has some pretty ball for it. This one is a level 5 Seeker event, 4 cost, 2 intellect, and 1 willpower icons. Insight trait, investigate. Difficulty of this skill test is equal to the highest shroud value among locations. If you succeed, discover 1 clue. That's pretty intense.
This is like the highest upside investigate card, I think, in the game.
Yes.
Especially in bigger scenarios where, you can just have an army of minions run around, flip all the locations face up, and then you, as probably
Snag
Rex,
8 clues.
Yeah, just like suck them all up.
Yeah, see, this is one where I feel like the value just swings so hard, so low to multi.
Absolutely. In solo, it's definitely not worth it because you have to go flip up all those locations yourself. The good news is you don't have to stay in them. Like, you could just run around, visit all the places on a whirlwind tour, and then bust out your magnifying glass and pick up all those clues. But it's probably easier just to pick them up along the way and save yourself 5 XP.
Yeah. But really fun when it goes off. I have played. Nick had a min build that ran this standalone, and we were playing 4-player, and I think he swiped like 7 off of one. So
it is huge action compression.
I think it deserves its level 5. I think it deserves its level 5 designation, but I don't think it's a general purpose card. This is something you have to kind of think about and make sure that you're gonna be in a position to actually let it, because this is costing you a lot.
It is definitely not an every game kind of card, but any game where you play this card to good effect is going to stand out.
Love a bomb.
Oh god, Casey in chat is mentioning double or nothing on this.
And in multiplayer, that's going to be all the easier to do.
Yep.
Okay, see, we have a new achievement to unlock for Iron Man this year at Arkham Knights. So then let's move it on to the typewriter.
All right, the Chicago typewriter is a rogue weapon. Takes up 2 hand slots, costs you 5 resources and 4 XP. Brings with it 2 combat icons. It is item, weapon, firearm, and illicit traded.
That's a lot of traits.
I don't think there are many cards that have 4, but I'm not going to search to find that out for sure. Comes into play with 4 ammo. The action, you could spend 1 ammo to fight, and you may spend any number of additional actions when you perform the attack. You get +2 combat for each action you spent on this fight, including the one you spent as the initial fight, and you do +2 damage. And then you take a moment and you look back at the lightning gun, and why is this card not that card?
Well, luckily, you can't take the lightning gun. Green.
Yes. And it is cheaper, right? It is only it's only 5 resources instead of 6. It's only 4 XP instead of 5. You do get an extra shot. And you can decide how much of a combat boost you need, sort of when you use it. You could ace in the hole and spend all 6 actions for plus 12 combat.
There are those crazy bomb turns that those rogues love to play.
Yeah, please don't actually do that. If you do that in a game and it goes badly, I will not be responsible.
But like, even if you take away the whole thing of spending additional actions, +2 combat for 3 damage, that's a good weapon.
That is absolutely the real killer. +2 damage is hard to get. Like, there are very few weapons in the game that will give that to you, and they're all expensive. So your class probably only has access to 1 or 2 of them.
If that.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this. And Sleight of Hand exists in this very faction. So
yes, this is definitely better sleight of hand than a lot of other options in Rogue right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as long as you've got a investigator, you don't really care that it's taking up both your hand slots. Or I suppose if you're playing skids and really that bandolier. I like the typewriter.
Definitely the best weapon in Rogue at sort of this level of XP.
Okay, so let's finish off Rogue then. With the gold pocket watch. Healing Time. It's a level 4 exceptional rogue asset, 2 cost, willpower and wild icons, item and relic traded. It has 2 fast actions. You may, when a phase begins, remove the gold pocket watch from the game. Skip this. Or after a phase ends, you may remove the gold pocket watch from the game. Eat that phase. So, 8 XP is not nothing. This is another one of those cards that is a one-of in your deck, so unless you're kind of drawing through or have a way to seek out an item, there are going to be games that go up. But that's a really powerful effect.
I think it is hard to really get the 8 XP's worth of value out of this card. Like, there's no doubt that if you draw it and you play it, and you give everyone 3 extra actions by getting rid of it, or you skip a Mythos phase or something like that, that it's good. But you could have spent 8 XP on a bunch of other stuff that really helps a lot more often.
Like 2 typewriters. Have people gamed out what the best course of action is? Is it to skip the Mythos phase, because that way you get upkeep? Or is it to repeat the investigation, so that way enemy attacks?
I mean, that's got to depend on what's in play, right? If you have a bunch of enemies, skipping the enemy phase might be the best. If you don't have a bunch of enemies, but you're 1 doom away from advancing the agenda, you skip the Mythos phase, or I guess do the investigator phase again if you don't need the extra cards and resources. Basically, you sit with it on the table, and then you have this nice long chat every round, like 3 times per round. Are we going to pocket watch this phase?
Those are always fun conversations, because you're always like, dude, Rogue, chill it. We know you have it on board, okay? Is it
but
bad
you don't want to
that...
miss it, right?
Well, that's
Could
true.
you imagine going all the way through a scenario with the pocket watch in play and then not ever having used it?
I feel like that's a real threat with cards like this, where you really want to get like the savior card bomb play. You kind of hold on to it too long, and you're reticent to use it when it would be really good, but maybe not the best way yet.
I know I have done that so many times. You hold on to a card like, I am going to use this effect when it is going to be fantastic, or like to get rid of one specific threat. But then that never happens, and you're just sort of sitting there with value that you didn't use.
So, kids, don't be shy about popping your golden pocket watch. Is it disgraceful that this is the first time I've noticed that there's an elder sign on the inside of the lid?
No, because I didn't notice that either.
All right.
Although I think mostly what this means is that my monitor is too bright right now.
It really is. It is buried in that bloom.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never taken it because I'm too hand to mouth with my experience, and I'm not disciplined enough to save up 8 between 2 scenarios. Because how often do
8
you
is a
pull
lot
8 in a single place? So yeah.
Well, Ferryman's Obol or Charon's Obol soon will help that for rogues.
That's true. True. Yeah, I see the value, but I think the cost might be a tad too. I don't know though. Maybe I'll have to take this now. Try it because it's so good. Okay. Now we're just walking in circles here. Let's move on to shriveling.
All right, Shriveling 5 is a mystic spell. Uses up 1 arcane slot. Costs you 3 resources, 5 XP. It has a willpower and 2 combat icons, sort of an interesting mix. Comes into play with 4 charges, and as an action, you can spend 1 charge to fight. This attack uses willpower instead of combat. You get +3 willpower and deal +2 damage for this attack. If a skull, cultist, tablet, elder thing, or tentacle symbol is revealed during this attack, take 2 horror. This is the mystic lightning gun, basically.
Yes. And this is a good argument for Fearless, I feel, because, I've played a lot of shriveling guys. I feel like I've killed more things in this game with shriveling than with anything else. And those bad stuff tokens, they show up. If you're using a lot of shriveling, you're just gonna have horror. And something like Fearless is a pretty good way to go.
Yeah, definitely you want to have ways of dealing with the horror if you're going to take Shriveling 5.
Which makes sense because, goddamn, it's 3 cost. It's 3 cost. It's so good.
Still not as accurate as the lightning gun, because that lightning gun is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. But +3, even at your basest, any investigator who can take this, you're swinging at a 7. Unless you've got some weird penalty.
It is pretty easy to hit with the shriveling. That is for sure.
I feel like it's mind shotgun. That's. I
don't always take Shriveling 5 with Agnes, actually.
Yeah.
Just because of that extra horror pressure.
There's extra horror pressure, and she's got other ways of dealing extra damage that others. Yeah, I would agree. I was actually just going to say, not every Mystic takes this, I don't think. This is really only if you're planning on pulling a lot of efficient weight, dispatching big enemies. I've gotten through a lot of campaigns just holding on to level 0, but if that is of concern and you want to be able to take something big down quickly, this is a great way to go.
Yeah, it hits like a truck. Or, well, as much like a truck as anything in Arkham does, which does 3 damage base. Just like the lightning gun, just like the typewriter, just like dynamite.
Yeah, it's really hard to. What is it? I've Got a Plan is the only thing that can deal 4 damage in a single action without any kind of weird shenaniganry.
Yeah, I guess that is the only card that does it on its own.
Mm-hmm. You could always commit like a vicious blow or something like
that. Yeah.
All right. So then moving on to the final Mystic card here. Protection. Ward of Protection is a level 5 Mystic event, 1 cost, willpower and wild iconed. Spell and spirit traits, fast play when you draw a non-weakness encounter card. Cancel all of that card's effects and discard it. Then take a horror. So
I know we. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, so obviously this is your leveled up Ward of Protection instead of just being limited to treacheries. it's any non-weakness encounter card. So more or less, you're paying XP so that you can hit an enemy with it. That's what you're paying for. Which
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I like that effect, and maybe someone like Ree or the newly spoiled Father Mateo, who probably is not going to engage in combat when possible. Norman Withers, I feel like might take this from time to time, but I don't tend to find room for it very often. Mystic just has other ways of dealing with enemies.
Well, and if you jump forward about 6 packs, right, we got Ward of Protection 2, which is very similar to Ward of Protection 1, except you are capable of protecting multiple people. This is expensive.
Yeah, it is.
I do love that you can get enemies, though.
And it's not even like non-elite.
No, it's any enemy that comes out of that encounter deck. You're just like, oh, no thanks.
Sorry.
But it also has to be you, right? So if you're not playing solo, there's a pretty good chance that somebody else draws the big enemy instead of you.
Like 90%.
Well, I mean, I'd expect about 75% in 4-player, but, you know,
Something like
tweak the odds a little bit for Murphy's Law.
Yeah. So this is a good card, but I feel like most people have something else that you'd rather.
It's the same as like all the 5XP cards. They are really strong when they do the thing that they are meant to do. It's just a question of how much you need that and how often
deal
it comes
3 goddamn damage like shriveling.
up.
So good.
Yeah, the weapons definitely are a little easier to get full value out of. Shriveling.
All right, so let's hop into the survivor cards.
All right, survivor cards, my favorite. Akina, level 3, is a 4-cost survivor ally. It comes with a willpower icon and an agility icon, 1 health, but 4 sanity. Response: when an enemy attacks you, exhaust Akina and deal 1 horror to her. Deal that enemy's damage to any enemy at your location instead. You still take the horror dealt by the attack.
Which, it's worth noting, you could place on her.
You could, or on you, or on Peter Sylvester if you have charisma. Akina 3 is interesting.
So, I don't think too many people were, and you say Akina differently. Do you have a reason for that? Do you like know something about pronunciation? Okay, that's fine. I have no idea what the correct pronunciation is.
How you are supposed to pronounce the name of this card.
All right, so we'll just have our bases covered. I'll say Aquina, and you can say Akina, and one of us will be right, I'm sure.
We'll probably both be wrong.
Yes, that's usually how the internet works. I don't think anyone's falling head over heels to buy Akina level 1, right? The one that comes in the core set, and you deal that enemy's damage to another enemy at your level.
Yeah, that one is really hard to actually use, especially in Survivor.
So, what's nice about this is like the old one, you could only ever even justify it in multiplayer. Because in solo, having 2 enemies engage with you doesn't happen enough to justify a 5
pretty much
cost
only
ally.
when like an act advances or something and spawns an enemy on top of the normal draw you get.
Right. But you're not, I mean, you don't want to have a 1 experience 5 cost ally in play just for that occasion. No one's doing
No, absolutely not. I mean, and you know, Akina is a 4 sanity soak, which is great, but still really expensive.
So then moving to level 3, less XP cost, which is good. I mean, 4 cost is still a meaty damn card, but 5 is really where it starts to go. God damn. The 4 is better, and then you can deal that enemy's damage back to it, which is cool.
Yes. And of course, there are some enemies that don't do any horror, which are hilarious with Akina. Like the rats just sort of eat themselves.
Yes. I like her. I think I've only ever tried her in one build though. I tried out that dodge tank Wendy at the end of Dunwich when she came out, and it was fine. But I just think,
I don't know that I would bother in Wendy. Like,
yeah, see,
you don't
that's
want to take enemy attacks. You want to evade them all before they happen.
mm-hmm.
Um,
You think Yorick might want her?
that's the build that I have tried it in as a sort of really tanky build, right? You can recur the keepsake and the leather coat to sort of save you from taking too much damage or horror. Turn that damage back onto your enemies, make it easier to defeat them with your sort of low-level survivor weapons and base-level guardian stuff. It seems potentially useful, and it's never really panned out when I tried. I think it just might be a little bit more than you need. Like, Yorick is already resilient and pretty good at killing enemies.
Yeah. You're filling a need that's not really there. Getting cute at that point. I don't know though. There might be an investigator where she fits really well, but at this point, I think she's cool. I really like that effect. It's kind of cool, and you can do some fun things, like intentionally invoking attacks of opportunity to trigger her and kill things, and
yeah,
the cool potential's there. But at the end of the
maybe
day,
in Forgotten Age, we'll get enemies that do a lot more damage than horror, and so taking the horror hit in exchange for a bunch of free damage could be really nice.
ah, yes, the Forgotten Daughter for the Forgotten Age. Sense. They're trying to tell us something, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to the next Survivor one. Try and Try Again is a level 3 Survivor asset, 2 cost, 2 willpower icon, talent traded, and reaction. After a skill test is failed, the skill card you own is committed to that test. Exhaust Try and Try Again. Return that skill card to your hand.
This is 1 XP too high for what I really want it to be.
Yeah, Min being able to take this would be a thing.
Exactly, right? Like, Min with this card would be fantastic. You turn failed skill tests into card draw with the rabbit's foot and you get your skills back. But it is 3 XP and she can't.
Yeah, I almost feel like because if you're including this in the deck, you're kind of committing to having enough skills in your deck to make it work. So it's got to be like real mean and lean. I don't know, maybe there's a place for it, but I have never found enough room for this.
Oh, what? We think Silas, the spoiled novella survivor that's eventually coming, is going to be skill heavy. So
I could see that.
It might slot into him. I don't know. I always put Rabbit's Foot in Wendy, which I think is basically the same thing, but probably better.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is fail, draw. I don't know how important it is to have that particular card back. Like, I think, yeah, like you said, Rabbit's Foot kind of does a similar thing, but probably
I think it
better.
Depends a lot on how hard you lean into the skills, right? Like, there's the survivor skill that lets you pull cards back out of the discard pile, and you don't want to commit that and then discard it because then your recursion is gone. So, like, I think there's a skill-heavy survivor package you could really build that would Try and Try Again. But the survivors we have right now sort of don't. Like, that, you don't really want to play that way for them.
God, honestly, I'd be okay with this as a level 0 card. I don't think it's crazy powerful even at level 0.
No,
because you got to find it, you got to pay for it, you got to play it, and then it's niche thing. Like, skill test, skills committed, and it fails. Like, it's already asking a lot of you.
I mean, Rabbit's Foot is a level 0 card that costs 1. It takes up your accessory slot, and it doesn't work with other people's skill tests, but, fail, get a card back. is clearly not that strong.
Probably just overcosted. Happens. Maybe we'll get
Yeah.
a level 2 one that's not too buffed.
Nerfed.
Nerfed. There you go. So let's use that term. All right. Why don't you close this out?
All right, and the last player card in this pack, the Red Gloved Man, is a 2-cost, 5 XP neutral ally with the Ally and Conspirator trait. You discard him for a skill test. You get 1 wild icon. Please don't do this.
Don't do that.
Text: he is fast and has a response. After the Red Gloved Man enters play, choose 2 of your skills. While the Red Gloved Man is in play, raise the base value of each of those skills to 6. But, flip side, forced, at the end of the Mythos phase, discard the Red Gloved Man. So he's only ever going to last that 1 round, barring some shenanigans. Oh, and he has 4 hit points and 4 sanity.
It's important, because if he's
It's
lasting through to the end of the Mythos phase, that can matter. So how have you found the Red Gloved Man?
I like him. He fits in basically anything. I don't think we've seen any investment that can't take neutral up to 5. And just like, hey, get at least +1 and probably more to 2 of your stats for a whole round, where you don't have to worry about attacks of opportunity because the Red Gloved Man will take them for you.
And he himself is fast, so it doesn't invoke one.
Right. It doesn't cost you an action to play, so you get all your actions using those upgraded stats. He's expensive, though. Like, the 5 XP could get you some really fantastic things.
True. What I've found is that the Red Gloved Man is great in a deck that wants to leverage farther its lower level cards. So, one of the first ones I built that I found good success with was an Agnes build that ran kind of Forbidden Axe style, as you do. And when you're running Fire Axe, it's just a good weapon. You don't really need to upgrade it to a whole lot. However, being able to spend your last 2 resources to pop this guy into play, hit things with a base value of 6. You know, if you are able to drain yourself down to resources, then every one of those swings is at
2 damage.
2
at
damage.
6.
Like, it's just good.
Yeah, I definitely like including it in my decks for sort of standalone multiplayer kind of stuff. Like, I brought 2 of them in my decks to Gen Con just because, like, you have no idea what you're going to have to deal with. So being able to pop in an ally and say, whatever my bad stat is, it's 6 now.
Yeah, that's the thing. And what I love about him is that there's so much going on because of that 4 health and 4 sanity. Like, he is a way to soak up a couple of attacks of opportunity. Like, say you're across the board from your teammates, you need to book it over to the one location so that you guys can pop the agenda with the clues, or, you know, someone needs to take a swing at an enemy that's engaged with you, or for whatever reason, you've got an enemy, you need to get somewhere. You can pay this guy down for 2. If you don't feel like evading, you can soak up probably 2 to 3 attacks of opportunity with this guy, depending on what's smacking you, and just get something else done. Like, I've done it before where I've been engaged with an enemy.
He soaks up a ton of damage.
Yeah.
And more.
Like, I've been engaged with an enemy, slapped him down, put my intellect at 6, and then just investigated a couple times, just kind of pretending the enemy's not there because he's smacking the Red Gloved Man instead of me.
Yeah, I mean, and even if you boost up your strong stat and then one of your weak stats, like, it's still at least +1 to your strong stat. I mean, you don't want to do it just for that, right? Like, 2 resources and 5 XP for just +1 willpower on Agnes is definitely not worth it. But, you know, at least you can get a lot of extra value out of it.
I feel like he's a nice ally to have in the pool because flexible, anyone can play him. I mean, he costs a fair amount of XP, but he's cheap in game once you have him. He's just a really flexible solution for a myriad of problems. He's just nice to have.
I think that's sort of the drawback, right? Is that unlike all the other 5XP cards we've like just talked about, he is not nearly as explosive. Like, usually you're not going to play the Red Gloved Man and do something incredibly insane. He's just going to soak up a bunch of damage, boost up your stats to help you do the things that you were already going to do. And so he's not like a huge priority pick, except for Calvin, which is going to happen eventually, but not yet.
Yes. Calvin has to finish the scenario to get XP.
Finishing a scenario doesn't seem like it's usually that hard, Calvin. But, you know, 10 XP is still a lot.
He has to favorably finish a scenario. It's pretty easy for the scenario.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, that gets us through Lost in Time and Space. Any final thoughts on this bomb pack, Chris?
The final packs of a scenario are always so fascinating because, or of a cycle are always so fascinating because now is when they can really start dropping in all of the huge XP bombs, right? Like, there are not a lot of 5 XP cards before this pack in the cycle. And, you know, these ones come in with a bang. And the 8 XP pocket watch.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing, and I kind of like that trend of releasing the big bombs in the final pack. I don't know if it's going to hold true, but I often find myself not actually getting that many experience from the penultimate scenarios in a lot of campaigns, so that's
no, it's sort of a weird thing, right? Because Lightning Gun is fantastic when you buy it like 3 or 4 scenarios into a campaign.
Yeah, like mid-campaign.
You know, maybe 2 if you are really gunning for it with Zoe. But, you know, if you're in the last scenario of a campaign, you're not going to have 10 XP going into, you know, quest number 8 to buy 2 lightning guns. So you just sort of sit there and you drool and you think, if only I had had this card a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Well, you could always run Delve Too Deep. Just throw that one out there.
Yeah, you just start a new campaign all over again because you want to play with all the cool new toys.
Or that. Yes, I'm definitely guilty of that one.
Oh, aren't we all?
All right. Well, I completely forgot to let you do it last time before we closed up, Chris, but anything you'd like to prop for your channel?
Yeah. So, I am Chris, sometimes known as LOTR Deck Tech. I make new decks for Lord of the Rings every week, post a video with a scenario. Right now they're going out on Tuesdays, but that might have to change in the near future. You can sub if you want, or just join the Cardboard of the Rings Discord, where I post them every time one's uploaded. They're fun. Lots of sort of different decks I like to do.
Lord of the Rings has some really fun deck space nowadays. That card pool is vast.
It is huge. And, you know, because you're so free to be able to include any of those cards that you want, you can do some shenanigans.
It's the deck building Wild West.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's pretty cool in its own way, even though I hate it sometimes. Friggin' steward.
Yeah, you know. It enables so much jank, though.
It does. I just wish more than one person could do that.
Oh, yeah. See, I solved that problem by just playing solo Lord of the Rings, where my deck gets all the best jank, and I don't have to share my toys with anybody.
You know, it's kind of sad how many problems you can solve just by saying, like, fuck everyone. No friends. I don't need them.
It also means I can play a game of Lord of the Rings in half an hour, whereas, you know, if I watch the Cardboard of the Rings Twitch, they like take an hour and a half for one scenario or more.
That's what made me fall off twitching when I was involved, is that like it just always became like 3 or more players, and I just don't have the staying power for it anymore.
Yeah.
But anyway, not a problem for Arkham at this point. So thanks, Chris, for hopping on here with us. Hopefully, we'll have you
Yeah,
on again.
thanks for having me. It was great.
Yeah, we'll hopefully have you on for another one in the near future and continue this push to get caught up to the Forgotten Age soon. Hopefully, maybe, I don't know. It's starting well, so let's hope it continues. This has been the Miskatonic AV Club. I'm Sean. This was Chris, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys on the next one for The Path to Carcosa. Bye.